Hi, my name is Tamsin Anderson. I'm a Storyline developer. And last week I talked to you about how to use masters in Storyline to keep your coding efficient and updatable. Today I'm going to show you another use for master slides, and that's to help with QA. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the process where you complete an e-learning module and you want to run it through a quality assurance check before you hand it off as complete. So someone's going to check for spelling errors, formatting errors, overall functionality, and you want your QA person to be able to see everything that's going on and catch any mistakes. So what I've done to demo this is create a very, very simple module, no fancy visuals, no fancy coding. We are just taking a few slides and asking how many apples you're going to buy, 1, 2, or 3, and the same question with oranges, bananas, and the very final slide is showing the total amount of fruit purchased. So let's pretend we've handed this off to a QA person, and they're going to take a look at the scene. All right, and they're testing your module, and they say, I'm going to buy 2 apples and 2 oranges and 2 bananas, and total fruit purchased equals 6. So your QA person says, check, everything's working. Except, guess what? It's actually not, because they're not seeing the total amounts added on each of those slides. The final total came out right, but we might have a problem on any of the individual slides before the end. So let's take a quick look at the slide master. Now, what I've done is create a QA layer that rides over the top of the master in the layout here. You don't want to put it directly on the top level slide, because if you do that, it will end up underneath any pictures that you have on layouts. So if you put QA information up here, it's going to end up under this picture and get covered up. So instead, you want to create a QA layer that rides over the top of the master, and also in the properties of that layer, make sure you uncheck the Hide Other Slide Layers button. You don't want this layer, when it comes up, to hide other stuff on your slide. You just want it to ride over the top. You also, depending on the design of your slide, top left corner might not work out for you. You might have to move this text to the top middle, top right, wherever works, so that you can see it over what's going on your slides. And then you can add any information you want in here. So I've just added a couple of variables to be shown. One is the count fruit variable, which is just how it's adding up how many pieces of fruit I've purchased. The other is a very useful variable to show the slide number that you're on. Now, if you use Articulate Review, you might have noticed when you add a comment in AR, it does show the slide number there, but if you then make changes and republish to the same AR link, if you changed the order of slides or added new slides or deleted some and the numbering changed, it doesn't always catch that in Articulate Review, and it might come out with the slide being in something called Scene Not Found. So it's really helpful to put the slide number on here, and that way your QA person can better communicate to you which slide they saw a problem on. So anyway, that's something I use a lot, and that's also a built-in variable in case you haven't seen those before. If you go to your normal variables tab, usually you just see the project variables, which are the ones that you've created, but you can also click this built-in tab, and there's a whole bunch of useful variables in there that you can use for various things like that. So finally, the last thing you're going to do is at the master layer, you're going to create a trigger to show that QA layer when the timeline starts on the slide. And because it's on the master that all your slides are underneath, it's going to come up on every single slide. So let's go ahead and try that out. So I'm going to preview this scene. And now we're seeing we're on slide 1.1 and we have 0 fruit to start with. I'm going to say 2 apples, and my triggers don't add in the total until I've hit the next button. So let's see what happens here. Oops, that first slide only gave me a count of 1, even though I selected 2. So let's take a look at this again. So we got count fruit 1, and I'm going to take 2 oranges. So it should come out to 3. Oops, 4. So this one's adding 3. So now you can see that there's 2 slides that have an error on them. This last one, 4, goes to 6. We end up with the final total being correct. but we have two slides that we have to fix. So the first slide, oops, I added the wrong value here, so we're going to change that 1 to a 2. And this one, oops, I have a 3, that should have been a 2. And now if we re-preview the scene, we've got a fruit count of 0. We're going to buy 2 apples. This time it worked. We're going to buy 2 oranges. Now it's working. So without seeing the variables on every slide, it's possible that your QA person could believe that things are working, but actually in the back end there are mistakes that could come out if people were to click buttons in a different order. So I hope that was useful to you. And also I want to remind you that when you're ready, when you decide that QA is all done and you're ready to republish, you do want to go back here and just disable that trigger to show the QA layer, because you don't want it showing up in your final view, and do this before you publish, and that should take care of it for you. Thanks for listening.